Hi, I'm Whitney.
And I'm Taylor, and we're the Ghost Sisters. We are back for episode 4, where we are going to get into the first part of haunted locations. And so I kind of went through and I created a list of haunted locations that I just kind of noticed. And then as I went through, I realized that I forgot some. So I tried to pepper them in there, here and there. But we're going to have 2 episodes.
You didn't salt them in?
Ridiculous.
I feel assaulted.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Pepper away.
Pepper away. So we're doing 2 episodes on this. And I decided that the first episode, I'm going to cover churches, cemeteries, and catacombs. And then we're going to get into hospitals, asylums, and nursing homes. Notice I categorize these all together because they're basically the same thing. And then we get into forests and then mines and caverns. So,
forests. Forests are spooky.
in. Forests are spooky, especially the ones that I covered. So I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. The first group is our churches, cemeteries, and catacombs. And honestly, when I was going through like all of the ones that I went through for both episodes, then I literally typed in, why are these things haunted? And I got nothing. So I really ended up just kind of looking at why I think they're haunted. So you can,
First, Taylor, do you know what the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery is?
No, what's the difference?
A graveyard is a small burial ground that is normally part of a churchyard or located on church property. A cemetery is a large burial ground that is not affiliated with a church or situated next to one.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Learning with Whitney. All right.
So, why are these things haunted? Basically, churches, they're a spiritual place with high emotions. You typically have weddings, baptisms, funerals, very, very happy things, very, very sad things. And
sometimes some very blah things.
Oh, yeah, lots of blah things. Whitney and I are not churchgoers. For those
not that we're hating on your religion or anything.
No.
I'm sure even if you are religious, you've been to some blah things at a church.
Legit. That's legit. So people believe that they have a greater connection to God or the related deity of the church while they're within those walls. So they tend to open themselves up a little bit more to the spiritual side of things. And then abandoning a church could lead to an absence of these deities, which could allow for darker entities to move in. By
abandoning, you mean not like you as a person abandoning the church. You mean like the church was left abandoned, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Whitney and I both, we didn't abandon religion, basically. We just stopped going to church one day. Whitney's kind of like, but
abandon's not the word I would use. But
yeah, it is not the But we didn't have anything dark happen because of that, or darker entities or anything like that. So cemeteries and graveyards are supposedly not haunted, which I thought was interesting.
Well, would you really if you died and you were buried, how many other fun places are there to haunt?
Legit. That's
than a bunch of other dead people.
Right.
Hey, Steve.
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 So yeah, that's basically the thought process is that, you're not going to stay where you were buried. You're basically going to go someplace that you enjoyed being and you'd rather haunt that place. Typically, people that do haunt cemeteries are people that are still tethered to their body that don't know they're dead. Oh. And that becomes a big problem. So, and then, of course, catacombs. I personally I don't want nothing to do with catacombs. Matter of fact, when Whitney, or was it Mom and Dad that they were going to come down to France for a little bit or something like that. And I was like, don't go in the catacomb. And were going to do something.
You freaked out because, granted, France's catacomb system is fucked the fuck up. Don't go. I don't even think I would go on a tour of it.
We'll get into
because
it,
of how interconnected and woven and everything that is, and you'll get fucking lost. Don't do it. But
Legit.
I did go to the catacombs when I was in Rome, and it was actually very fascinating. Not the one that's over with the Roman Catholic Church and all of that kind of stuff. This was actually a separate catacomb, but it was an interesting experience. I would go again.
Sure.
It didn't feel haunted. It was actually very nice and cool. It was a hot summer day, but since it's down in the ground, it's not so cool. Anyways.
And then, the bodies. But so I want nothing to do with
Did
catacombs.
see
They freak me out.
a couple bones while I was in there. So
Yeah. I'm claustrophobic as well. So the thought of being like caving was something I will never do ever. Unless it's Carlsbad Caverns. Like I'll go to Carlsbad. That's different.
a walking tour that's super duper open and you know how to get out. Yeah. But not going to go like spelunking.
Oh, no. Mm-mm. I was walking. So actually, one of the places that we're going to talk about when we get to caves is Hellhole Cave in Virginia, West Virginia or something like that. That like some of the spaces are no bigger than the size of a baseball. And,
well, see, I can't even do that anyways because like what my ankle is bigger than a baseball. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. No. Mm-mm. So anyway, back to she's making fists like how?
Like you don't even. I don't know. Maybe they're contortionists. Anyways, continue on.
So that's why I think these things are haunted. So I'm going to go through and talk about some famous church haunts, and then we're going to talk about famous cemeteries and famous catacombs. So some of these areas I got all over the world. Some areas I just kind of hung on to the U.S. So the first one is the Order Church in Order-sur-Glane in France.
Sure.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
You're welcome.
It's in France. I'm going to pretend like oh my God.
You've not seen that?
No.
It's not. It's the beauty pageant. They all go through and they like say their country and everything. And they get to France and she's like a screeching bird. She, France!
Oh my God. Okay. No, I have not seen that.
Okay. You should check it out. That's great. Anyways.
Okay. I will. So this was the site of one of the worst Nazi massacres of civilians on French soil. So this is during, all that lovely time. 642 people died and 247 of them were children. So we're off to a rough start. Those people were either shot or burned alive on June 10th of 1944. Women and children were separated from the men and asphyxiated in the church with a smoke bomb. And whoever managed to survive that was shot. Or I want to say that there was maybe 3 people that survived it by pretending that they were dead and managing to escape. So
this all happened in the church? Or on the church grounds? The
women and children were killed inside the church. And then the men were killed around the church. So the charred remains of the village still stand and people still live in this area. So, yeah. So it's
go.
Right. Yeah. I sounded really excited about that, but that would be a really interesting thing to go see. So their paranormal experiences, they see the spirits of the slaughtered walking through the streets, which is disturbing. And even more disturbing, they smell burning wood and flesh, which doesn't sound good to me.
That's like is it Chicago? The syrup factory, right?
Yep. They can still, the molasses factory.
The molasses. Yeah. But I mean, that was just molasses burning into stuff. That this wasn't like phantom flesh smells.
Right. Phantom flesh smells. Oh. So then we have Egg Hill Church, which is in Spring Hills, Pennsylvania. And this was supposedly the site of a mass murder in the early 1900s, but there's no evidence that actually supports that. So there's 2 rumors for what happened here. The first rumor is the pastor was holding congregation, chained the doors, and murdered the entire congregation before killing himself in the bell tower.
What?
Yeah. So, and they're saying that he did it by knife, like he knifed everybody. And I don't know how big this congregation would have been that he would have been able to take out everybody with a knife.
Yeah, that sounds a little far-fetched because
Right.
like you would maybe get through like the first three people in the pews and everyone else would be like, what the fuck? And like, I would
Right.
hope, or they just, oh, I got the vapors. Like, I don't know, but I would think if it's a whole congregation, even if it's like a small town and there's only like 20 people in there, still.
Yeah. So
Anyways,
supposedly the knife resides in a tombstone and blood appears if the knife is removed, like a pool of blood will appear where the knife was sitting.
so it's like a bad King Arthur.
Yeah. So the second rumor, which I think is more believable, is the pastor actually gave poisoned offerings of Christ to the congregation and they died as a result of that. And then he hung himself before he could be found.
Yeah, that sounds more plausible.
Yeah.
But so then if you go back to the other one, is there still the knife that bleeds? If it's still haunted, where does the knife that bleeds come into play? You know?
The knife that bleeds is supposedly what he killed himself with.
Yeah, but if in the other one he hung himself.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Like they said that there's no evidence to support the rumors. So I'm not sure if that's actually a thing. If you happen to live in Spring Hills, Pennsylvania, and you know this story, reach out to us so that we can get clarification. Because what the fuck? So different paranormal experiences that they have, they hear voices and crying. They hear phantom bells ringing. They, of course, see apparitions in the graveyard. And then they see spirits following cars home. Like you're driving in your car and there's a spirit following behind you as you're driving. I would move. Like,
So, well, now I'm like, okay, so hold on. Is this like the spirit is like zooming with you? Like if you're going 60, are they just like, and they're like coming at you? Or is it just at each time you look, there's a spirit on the side of the road?
I honestly don't know, but either one, I would move. I'm not playing those games. Nope.
Fair.
Okay, so the next one is the St. Mary the Virgin Church in Clophill, England. Of course, everything in England is really fucking old. So this was built around 1350. Yeah, it's very old. So the cool thing about this church, or maybe the bad thing about this church, is it faces the wrong direction. So apparently churches are built so that they face the east, so that they're open to God, and east is considered the holy direction. But this church faces the west, so it's considered closed from God and open to hell. This became a problem for obvious reasons. It was abandoned It was abandoned in the 1840s for about 170 years. So it still did the thing for 500 years before it was abandoned. And then it became a focal point for vandalism and black magic because of course it did. Yeah, that's just
well, yeah. I mean, it was a losing battle. It was facing west. Like, fuck, man.
Don't build your shit facing west.
Yeah.
So, the things they see, of course, dark figures, extremely tall hooded monks walking near the church, which that creeps me out no matter what. If you're going to talk about monks and that kind of stuff, like I've never seen good monks, like hauntings.
Now, is there a history of monks at that church?
I didn't find anything on it.
That's interesting because if they didn't practice there,
then why would there be monks?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, granted this is in the 1350s and a lot of that history isn't written down. So there is a high possibility that there were monks there and it just wasn't documented. Of course, in the 1960s, they had possible satanic rituals, and they think that they maybe conjured something up and it's been left behind. It could be a guardian or an elemental. They have shoving and touching, grabbing, and then possible poltergeist activity as well. Yeah. And then we get into Adams Grove Presbyterian Church and Cemetery in Dallas County, Alabama. This was built in 1853, closed in 1974, and it is now on the National Register of Historic Places that was put on there in 1986. So this This one's creepy. They see a shadow man with fiery red eyes in the church and the cemetery.
Oh, dang.
Nothing about that's okay. This used to be land of Confederate soldiers. They typically will see a Confederate soldier that is ordering trespassers away. Like if you're there after hours or something like that, he'll tell you to get off the land and that kind of stuff and shoo you away.
Which, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, get the fuck out.
Right, exactly.
You don't belong there anyways. It's after hours.
Visiting hours. Yeah, exactly.
He's just being respectful.
Exactly.
Even though he's Confederate. So
yes. So the ghost of a former minister can be seen right before thunderstorms. And I don't know why the thunderstorm is significant in that, unless it's that he needs the energy from the lightning to manifest or something. But
maybe it also just made me think of like, you know, when you get older and you're like, oh, it's going to rain. My hips hurting. Like he's an old minister and he's like, just letting y'all know it's going to rain. My whole body's hurting. It's dead and gone, but it's hurting.
But it hurts.
Like
that's legit. They also hear a crying baby, which is terrifying. I don't like
crying children are awful.
Yes.
In real life and ghosts.
Yes. So this church is now privately owned, and my understanding is that they really don't like public coming by, or if you do come by, you need to like reach out to them beforehand and tell them like, hey, we want to come by and look and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've got a lot of churches and all that stuff. So yeah, St. Paul's Chapel in New York. I think we went into this whenever we were in New York.
Sure.
Possibly. It's the oldest church in New York City. And this one has an interesting kind of history to it. There was an English actor in the 1910s. His name was George Frederick Cook. He came to America as Shakespeare's Richard III. And he basically was like a real famous actor, and he toured all the things and everybody loved him as Richard III. The War of 1812 left him stranded in New York, and he hated it. So he drank himself to death. He died of cirrhosis of the liver on September 26th of 1812.
Seems like a very appropriate reaction.
I know, right? I'm stranded in New York. I'm going to drink myself to death. Yeah. So the legend is that after he died, his toe or finger was stolen by another actor and sent to his wife. Yeah. Whitney's giving me the funniest face. It's disgusting.
Why? Like,
I don't know.
You didn't kill him, so why did you take it?
Right.
Second, what were you accomplishing with that? Why? Yeah. Why?
I want to say it had something to do with like he thought it would impress his wife. So he
he sent it to his own wife?
Yes. Like, ew. I have the toe.
I would be like, we're fucking done. Like, I'm divorcing you because what the fuck?
Yeah, what is this macabre shit? Why didn't you give me a diamond ring? Come on.
Yeah, like, I have my own fingers. I don't need extra. Thank you.
You don't need extras. Thanks.
No, thank you.
So, predictably, she was very grossed out by this and threw it away.
Oh, good.
That's a normal. Oh, yeah, she threw it away. So, he is officially missing one of his toes or fingers. But perhaps the craziest thing, his body was originally interred in the stranger's vault, but then he was moved into a public grave. Whenever he was moved, his head was missing. And there's a couple of theories about this. So there is the theory. Mm-hmm. What? No. I mean, maybe, but there's the theory that he may have it may have been donated to science to pay off his creditors because, body parts back in the day were really expensive and you could make quite a bit of money doing that. But the other thing is the possibility that his head was taken to be a skull used in Hamlet, because Hamlet, every time they would do that play, they would prefer that the skull that Hamlet talks to be an actual human skull. So they think that perhaps his head was taken for that because he was an actor. So
and I was an actor.
An actor. So That's super gross. Obviously, people see him wandering around headless in the graveyard.
Headless
or
Nick?
the cemetery. Headless Nick, if only. I don't think he's as pleasant as nearly headless Nick.
Probably not.
Okay, so Christ Church and Graveyard in Alexandria, Virginia. This was built in 1773 as Fairfax Church and then became Christ Church in 1816. There are thousands of people buried here, but there's only a handful of markers. So that's a problem because,
you're a church.
Yeah. So apparently this was a time period where people were passing away very frequently, and there wasn't a lot of we just bury people and are done with it. But there was also a lot of construction that happened on here, and a lot of the headstones were moved. So some of the headstones are actually propped up against the church wall and aren't located with their bodies. So
still fucked up.
That's a problem. There was a mass grave of 34 Confederate prisoners of war found as well.
Wow.
They dug up a bunch of the graves in 1985, and that's when the activity really kicked in because, of course, you're disturbing remains, and that's going to be a thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think perhaps most disturbing is some of the markers that were above the ground did not match what was found under them. So they would be digging up what they thought was a 70-year-old man, and they were finding the body of a child. That kind of stuff. Like,
what?
How do you fuck up that bad? So, yeah.
So, maybe were they originally buried and the headstone was put in the wrong spot? Or this was after all the moving and everything?
I'm guessing that they were buried and the headstone was put in the wrong spot. Because they discovered this while they were digging up the graves in 1985.
Ugh.
Yeah, so a lot of people were mismarked. So that, of course, will lead to hauntings as well. If you're not given the proper burial, then you likely will haunt something. So getting into the lovely New Orleans, Louisiana. Nolens. St. Louis Cathedral and Cemetery. I don't know if you went here whenever you went to Nolens, but we should go if you didn't. Even if you did, we should go back.
I went to a cemetery. I went to the cemetery that has Nick Cage's tomb.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He bought himself a tomb. You meant Nick Cage. I was like, fun fact, he's not dead yet. But, okay, yes.
No, he has a tomb, and there's several theories behind him having a tomb there. And one is that all of his money is actually in it because the government can't take away your burial plot or anything, and they're not going to enter in there either. But that's why he's doing all these shitty movies, just because he's so bankrupt and everything. Yeah, that's one of the theories, is that he either put all of his money into it because the government can't take it away, or he literally put all his money into it. So yeah, anyways, I went to that cemetery.
Okay. So this cemetery is still active. It was established in 1789. It has 700 tombs and 100,000 dead bodies. The famous people in here are the Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau.
Yeah, this is the one that I went to.
This is the cemetery? Cool. Okay, cool. Her area is now closed off to the public, I guess, unless it's an official tour. You're not allowed to go in it because there was a theory that if you marked her tomb with 3 X's, she would grant you a wish. And then if your wish was granted, you were supposed to leave a gift for her. But this led to vandalism. Yeah. A lot of people, whenever they're near her tomb, they feel like they're being touched. They will become ill. They'll hear voices, that kind of thing. Did you feel anything while you were there?
I didn't. It was a sudden rainstorm, so I was just cold and wet. But also, her daughter is also buried in the same, not in the same tomb, but in the same cemetery. And so people would go and put X's on hers thinking that it was the other Laveau. And it was wrong. So I don't know what happened to them because they put it to the wrong voodoo lady, but don't mess with
They got
voodoo.
Cursed. They didn't get a wish. They got cursed.
She was like, that's my mama's job. Back off. Yeah.
Back off. I left that life behind. So we also have Henry Vignier. He was a sailor in the 19th century, and he was a nomad. And his story is super tragic. he was constantly worried about these really important papers whenever he would go out to sea. And he was staying at a boarding house whenever he had to go off and do his work for a while. Turns out these papers were the titles to his family tomb. He told the owner, these are really important. Please don't let anything happen to them. She assured him, absolutely, nothing will happen to him. The second he went out to sea, she sold them. So
what?
Right? Like, I can't even. Whenever he came back, he found out about this, and obviously there was nothing he could do to get them back.
No.
Yeah. No, he fell ill and died very shortly after he came back. But because his tomb was sold, he was buried in an unmarked grave in the paupers section.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that sucks.
That's very upsetting.
Yes. Like, I felt so bad when I was reading this. His ghost is seen typically as a full body apparition. He has blue eyes. He's very tall. And he is known to interact fully with people. Like, people think that he's an actual person. He will walk up to people and ask if they know where the Vignier tomb is because he's having trouble finding it himself. Or he'll come up during funerals and ask people, the grieving people, if there's room in their tomb for him.
Oh, that gave me chills. Me want to cry. Like, that just like hurts my soul. Like, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. Like,
yes, it was awful. I was just, and I was like, I have to put him in here because his story needs to be told if it's not being told elsewhere. So,
yeah.
And then we have Alphonse. He is just kind of this random guy that they think he may have been murdered or betrayed by the Pinede family. When anybody starts to approach the Pinede family tomb, he will warn them to stay away from it. Oh. But he takes visitors' hands, like he interacts fully with people and he appears as a full body apparition. He will take visitors' hands and smile and then ask them to bring him home. And nobody knows what he means by that, but he vanishes right after. And I'll be like, nope.
One, chances are you're a ghost. Two, you're a random dude that I just met in a cemetery. I'm not taking you anywhere.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
And then he's also known to gather flowers and offerings off of other people's graves and place them on his own tomb.
That's like, that's so sad. Like, I feel so bad. Like,
I know,
sir. They like, that's not your. It's this. That's the equivalent of like ordering your own flowers for Valentine's Day.
Legit, yes. So everybody needs to go to this graveyard, to the St. Louis Cathedral and Cemetery in New Orleans, and go and talk to Henry and tell him that he's wanted and that, people were terrible to him. And then go get flowers for Alphonse and put it on his damn tomb so he'll stop taking other people's.
Because they need their flowers too. Don't steal from them. Like, poor Alphonse.
Poor Alphonse. So some honorable mentions. This was just, I got overwhelmed with the amount of churches that I was finding. I've got St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The Most Holy Trinity Church, that's the actual name, Most Holy Trinity Church, in Brooklyn, New York. Washington National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and then the Church of St. Andrew in Staten Island, New York.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot. I feel like every church has a story like this. So getting into catacombs, we're going to start with the Mac Daddy of all catacombs. So the Paris Catacomb is approximately 320 kilometers of tunnels. And for those of you who speak American, it's 198.84 miles of tunnels, but only a very, very small portion of it has been mapped and open to the public. The Paris Catacombs are terrifying. If you get separated from your group and stuff like that, like they have tours and all that kind of stuff. If you get separated, you are supposed to remain where you are. Do not go off on your own and wait to be found because there's a very high chance that you'll get lost. Yeah.
And I would assume they have tours going like nonstop. So you would just end up with another tour group. Right. I wonder how many times like the next tour guides come up and be like, well, I found Susan. Like,
So, and the worst part about it is you're underground, so you have no cellular signal, or anything like that. So,
But I mean,
it is home.
that's actually a good theory and tactic in general. I remember one time when I went to work with Dad once, we were playing with the elevators, and it was like we were racing, and I hit the elevator button. He went in one, I went in the other. I got off on the wrong floor, and I was so scared. Like, I mean, I was like, I don't fucking know how old I was, but I was scared. And so I got off the elevator and I just stood next to the elevator. And Dad, he got off the elevator, and I guess he waited and he waited. And then I didn't come out of the next elevator, and he was like, oh, fuck. And so he went to the security guards, and they actually saw me on the thing. So instead of me getting on and trying to find what fucking floor, I stayed where I was, and they found me. So you should just chill the fuck out and stay where you are.
Just hunker down like a turtle.
Yeah.
Like a turtle.
Unless you're like in danger and like being chased, then you should get the fuck out. But like other than that, just chill, man. Just stay where you are.
They'll find you.
Yeah.
This is home to 6 million human skeletons, which is not okay. It was used in the 18th century due to overpopulation of Parisian cemeteries and the closure of the Cemetery of Innocents, which was called Les Innocents. Mm-hmm. Sure. It's very easy. Sure. It's very easy to get lost in it. One of the hospital doorkeepers, his name was Philibert Asper. He got lost in 1793, and he wasn't found until 11 years later. Yeah. His tomb is where his body was found. So they've got a marker on the ground, and they were like, he just lives here now. That being said, rapscallions in Paris actually created an entire fully functioning movie theater down in the catacombs, complete with like full screen projectors, snack bar, lounge
Why
seats.
not?
This was in 2004. The Parisian police went down there and found it, and they were like, what the fuck, y'all? So apparently they hold parties down there and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So there's obviously a ton to the Paris catacombs that we're already 35 minutes in, and I still got a lot to do.
They probably have 2 screenings a night, and we don't even know about it instead of just the one.
Screenings a night. Ridiculous. So we'll probably end up doing a whole thing on Paris catacombs at some point when we do location features. The next one is the Capuchins. Was this the one that you went to in Palermo, Sicily? No, you were in Rome. Never mind.
I was in Rome.
Okay, so the Capuchins is a burial catacomb in Italy that is famous for its mummified bodies. They Whitney doesn't like mummification. She's out. So the most recent interment was in 1920. They have not interred anybody since then. But she was a 2-year-old named Rosalia Lombardo, and she is almost completely perfectly preserved. There's actually a photo of her as she looked in 1982 compared to when, like,
now
how she was buried, and she looks like she has not decomposed at all. So she still has her hair. Her face still kind of looks flushed. It's fascinating.
So why?
So it has something to do with the fact that the entire island of Sicily is basically volcanic tuff, which is a very porous material, and it will absorb moisture very easily. So it's a very dry environment, which allows for the body to basically jerkify. It dries your skin out and stuff like that. So it's perfect for preserving for mummification.
Huh.
And then the last one that I have, I really couldn't find much. If it wasn't the Paris catacombs or the Capuchins, I really couldn't find much. But the next one that I found was Qom Ash-Shakafa, which is in Alexandria, Egypt. It was Egyptian, and I was like, I want to talk about it. So the only thing that I really found on it was that its name means mounds of shards because it used to contain mounds of shards of terracotta from people that would bring like food and wine and that kind of thing to the buried person, because essentially they believed that that person was ascending to the afterlife and they would need sustenance in the afterlife. So they would bring them food and stuff, and then the keepers would come and empty it all out and all that stuff. So yeah.
Keepers were like, these fucking idiots.
Or they're like, free lunch. So, yeah. And then
I
our
don't know if
cemetery-
I could take lunch from a dead guy.
I couldn't. No, there's no way.
Like,
I'd be
even
that
if it
motherfucker's
was like,
haunting me.
like if I watched them bring it and was like, yep, set it down, and then they walked away, I would be like, nope, I'm going to go to Subway. Like, I can't, no.
I am not stealing a Mint Pepsi tuna sandwich. I'm not doing it.
No. Also, tuna. Blech.
Well, I know, right? I don't know why I said too much. I should have said turkey and cheese. Something, I don't know.
Because you've eaten tuna before. All right.
Oh, tuna's disgusting. Okay, so our cemetery haunts. We're almost through this, I promise. So, cemetery haunts. The Stull Cemetery, or known as the Gates to Hell Cemetery in Kansas. There's a bunch of legends around this. Basically, they say that in the church, there's a staircase in the basement that will take you down to hell itself. There's a ladder that you can climb back up, but you'll climb for weeks if the devil doesn't grab you first. So a lot of this stuff is like, I found it on a silly, like a little, I don't want to say silly, but like on a clearly fan-made website kind of thing. So this was just kind of a fun thing. There's a woman in white that lures drivers to their death along the highway on the night before Halloween.
Oh, I think I've heard of that one.
There's a lot of woman in white stories. We're going to do a whole episode on the woman in white because there's a lot. On the full moon, witches gather near the old well to cast spells that lure young lovers to hell. Because of course. And then there was a tree that was rumored to be a hanging tree. And there actually is a tree in the cemetery that they don't know if it was used for hangings, but it's a big ass tree. So
it probably was.
I just greatly enjoyed the gates to hell aspect of it.
No, I could see if it was like a gateway to hell, not like you walk down the stairs into hell, but just more like hell comes from there. Like, yeah, that makes a little sense, but you had me in the first half.
And then I lost you in the rest of it.
Yeah.
Then there is the famous Westminster Presbyterian Churchyard in the Western Burial Ground in Baltimore. This is famous because Edgar Allan Poe is buried there. So, so burial ground was established in 1787, and then there was a church built on top of the burial ground in 1852, which essentially turned the burial ground into a catacomb. I don't know why.
That
they
seems
built
like poor planning.
Yeah. So they do see Edgar Allan Poe supposedly around the burial ground. Some have said that they've spoken to him. They see EVPs, shadow figures, orbs. There's a white-haired elderly man that will roam the churchyard.
That is not Edgar Allan Poe?
No, that's a totally different dude. There is supposedly a woman that was buried in her straitjacket to keep her bound after death. And you can hear crazed laughter in the catacombs.
Fuck.
No.
Oh.
I'm claustrophobic just like at the thought of being buried. And then on top of that, you put me in a straitjacket.
Straitjacket? No. Yeah, like you said that and my whole body was like,
yeah.
No.
And then apparently, if you are disrespectful to anything in the church or the grounds, there's a dead gravekeeper that will swear at you and chase you with a shovel out of the ground.
Good for him. Yeah. Like, he's doing his job. Like, way to go, man. Get it. And
then there was a 16-year-old named Lucia Watson Taylor that died in 1816, and she is seen kneeling and praying at her own grave. So.
Oh.
That was a weird thing to end it on.
Way to end it on like a super down note.
I know.
There, like
I know. And then we have the ever so famous Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Chicagoland. That's what they put on the website. It's not Chicago, it's Chicagoland. I had to write it out.
Okay.
So, the first burial was in 1834. There are currently 80 graves in there, but there are not a whole lot of headstones because of vandalism and bad upkeep. There are 4 different entities that they see. The White Lady, this is the famous one that they see. She was photographed in 1991 sitting on the headstone. She's famous for appearing in photographs, and she wears a hooded robe and is seen carrying a baby. we have the disappearing house, which I had never heard of before. But apparently there's a house that looks transparent and it has a window that's lit up like there's a candle in it. And then as you approach the house, it shrinks away and disappears.
Oh, sorry. I had to look up the woman on the gravestone because you said that she likes to appear. Like I looked it up legit. Like,
yeah, she's in a lot of pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then apparently, and this one made me sad, there was a farmer in 1870 who drowned when his horse became spooked and he was dragged into the pond because he became tangled in the reins and the horse drowned too. And perhaps the most creepy of that is that the figures can be seen just below the surface of the pond.
Oh, no.
Nope.
No.
I got very much what lies beneath vibes and I was out. Like,
yeah, no. Mm-mm.
So they also see a large black and tan dog and balls of blue and red lights throughout the cemetery.
Huh.
So honorable mentions that I was like, oh my God, we've done so many of these. Howard Street Cemetery in Salem, Resurrection Cemetery in Chicago, or Chicagoland, if you want to put it that way. Cemetery Hill in Gettysburg, which we'll get into Gettysburg in the next episode. Boot Hill in Tombstone, Arizona. Hollywood Forever in Los Angeles, and the Union Cemetery in Eastern Connecticut. So,
how did you just say Connecticut?
Connecticut?
I thought you said Connecticut or something. I don't know what you just said. I was like, it's Connecticut.
Maybe I got going. I was like, Connecticut or something.
Or it was like you were saying Connect a kit.
That was, I was told to spell it Connecticut. And that's not correct. I don't know who told me to do that. It was in grade school. So
I mean, there's also Arkansas.
Arkansas, yes.
Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay, so hospitals, asylums, yes. Hospitals, asylums, and nursing homes. Basically, shit happens in these. Basically, you've got deaths, you've got births.
Shit happens in these. Oh,
shit happens in these. High emotional periods, because asylums were started as rehabilitation places, but they basically became tourist attractions where people could come and look at the incarcerated. And basically it was like a zoo for humans, and it was horrible. Oh. The conditions were often super barbaric and patients were often very mistreated. So that will lead to bad things. I've got some famous places. Of course, I'm starting with the Trans-Allegheny Asylum. It was operational from 1864 to 1994, and it was designated for 250 patients. In the 1950s, it held 2,600 patients. So it was very overcrowded, which just led to terrible, how do you keep everyone clean? How do you keep disease from going rampant? It was very bad. They are known for their lobotomies. They performed over 4,000 lobotomies using what's known as the ice pick method. So the theory behind lobotomies is that there is a portion of your frontal lobe that controls personality, and people that were not deemed normal or were acting out and things like that, they would receive a lobotomy to try to stop those behaviors. So the ice pick method is where they have a thin pointed rod inserted into the eye socket. It's hammered in to sever the connective tissues in the frontal lobe. Obviously, this went wrong many times. They had a lot of deaths because of this.
Shocking.
Shocking. If you stick an ice pick in your brain, it's gonna be a problem. They had a significant number of people that ended up with personality disorders because of this, and it was a bad time. So they have 8 resident spirits. They have Lily, that was a little girl that was born and raised in the asylum. She's thought to, typically the children that were born into the asylum never left. They just hung out with their parents there.
Which, that's great that they weren't stealing them away from their parents, but also at the same time, you were not looking out for that child.
Right. What kind of life is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently you can hear laughter with her, and she likes to play games with staff and visitors who pay attention to her. So if you go in and you're like, hey, Lily, she'll play games with you and stuff. There's Jesse, who died of a heart attack in his bathtub. There's a bunch of Civil War soldiers, and perhaps the most famous of them is Dean, and you've probably heard of this. He was a mentally ill man. His roommates attempted to hang him, but it didn't work. And so they put him on the ground, put the leg of his bed on his head, and then stomped on it until he died.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What? Ugh.
Yeah, it said that he had the mental capacity of a child. So he had no idea what was happening to him. It is said that he's still there, and I've seen several ghost hunting shows that have gone through and talked to him. And he very much, they feel cold spots and they hear quiet crying with him. So they've shown that he likes to draw. He likes to draw in life. So if they'll leave out like paper and crayons and that kind of thing, he'll play with those. Toy trucks, like things that little kids would enjoy, he'll play with those. The isolation cells, because they of course had isolation cells in the asylum, they have disembodied voices screaming, "Get me out of here."
Yeah.
Which, I would be doing the same thing. Yeah. They of course also see shadows, objects moving on their own, disembodied voices or cries, bangs on the wall, breaking glass, and a whole plethora of other things. Then we get into Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky, which is, of course, very famous. It opened in 1910 as a tuberculosis sanatorium, and it became overcrowded and was made larger in 1924. It is known for at least 6,000 deaths, but they have an idea that there were a lot more because some of them weren't documented. There are so many hauntings associated with this. There is a little girl that's known to run up and down the third floor solarium. There's Timmy. He has a little leather ball that he likes to play with. So if you bring balls to him and roll them, he'll sometimes roll them back to you. Sometimes they see a hearse dropping off a coffin. Ooh, that's not okay. Phantom hearse. A woman with bleeding wrists crying for help, which makes me think that it was completed suicide.
Yeah.
And then a man in a white coat that they see walking to the kitchen, and they'll typically smell food when they see him. So they think he was maybe a cook or something.
Chef's gonna chef.
Chef's gonna chef. They have banging doors, lights where there shouldn't be because Waverly Hills is not functional right now. So there shouldn't be any lights on. They will see footsteps, or they'll see footsteps. They'll hear footsteps. And then apparently you could see them. Yeah. Fifth floor woman. There are two women that they think they see in the fifth floor. The first one is the head nurse. She was found dead in room 502 in 1928. That she was an alleged suicide by hanging. She was 29 years old, pregnant, and unmarried. So it was likely depression and shame.
Society.
So
dicks back then.
They were dicks back then. And then woman number two supposedly jumped from a window in 1932 in that same room, in room 502. But there is theory that she might have been pushed and did not jump out herself. So yeah, that's the question. Who knows? A fun thing that might happen with this is there's talks that it might be turned into a 4-star hotel.
Is that fun? Is it?
I mean,
that's fucked up.
I know that is fucked up, but I'd go stay there.
I mean, yeah, I'd probably stay there too. But also at the same time, like, all of these people died in horrific situations.
Yeah, tuberculosis sucks. Like, it's a terrible disease.
You're going to be like, ooh, we have a spa. Would you like a massage?
Right.
If I had died then, I would be haunting the fuck. If you were over there getting your relaxation on, I would be like, boo, motherfucker. Like, what? No, we're not doing that shit. Like, no.
So I wondered if they were going to have some kind of memorial to the victims. I feel like you would have to. They wouldn't be able to get away with this, with turning it into a hotel without having some kind of memorial to the people that passed away here.
Because you're not going to have like surviving family members or something that are going to be up in arms.
Maybe.
Like it's been so long.
In 1932, so they would be 90 something. So you might have grandchildren or something like that that are still around.
Could.
So
If they get upset, I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, Mima was born in the 30s, right? Or the 20s or something like that. Mamie was born in the 40s. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Then Mima had to have been in the 20s.
Right. So the fact that we're still around, we're her great grandkids. So there's still a possibility. And we knew her growing up. So
we didn't know her growing up. We knew her while we were growing up. Yeah, just clarifying that we are not 100 years old.
Yep. We're time travelers. We're skinwalkers. Okay.
Oh, fuck, don't. Like, God.
Don't say it like that.
Yeah. God.
Okay. A couple more here before we jump into Forest. So the Royal Hope Hospital in Florida was a Spanish military hospital from 1784 to 1921. It was demolished, and then a replica was built to house the victims of the Seminole War. Here's the problem. It was originally built on an ancient Native American burial ground.
Of course.
Of course it was. So they hear groans and shouts. They will see gurneys moving out of place. They see beverage jars, I'm guessing they mean cups, sliding out, sliding over outside seats and that kind of thing. They'll hear marching feet, all that stuff. Mm. And then the Tranquil Sanatorium in Canada
probably was not as tranquil as it sounds.
No. So in 1907, it opened for tuberculosis patients, and then in 1958, it closed. Then it reopened in 1959 to house mentally ill patients, and then it closed permanently in 1983 because it was abandoned.
Crazy. It's still crazy to me that like 1950s, like that, like, God damn, that was not that long ago that you still had like a sanatorium that was still in operation. That is insane.
Yes. So there's actually some asylums and sanatoriums that I'll talk about in the next episode that those were in operation until the 90s. So, yeah.
What?
Yeah, lovely. So they hear or they see orbs, they feel sadness, they feel unease, they experience extreme temperature changes, voices, and supposedly there was a nurse who was murdered by one of her patients that is known to walk the area, which wouldn't surprise me.
No.
Honorable mentions, the several hospitals in England, the Whittingham Hospital in England, the Old Changi Hospital in Singapore, Clark Air Base Hospital in the Philippines. These were all things that I was going to look up, and then I was like, Taylor, you have to move on. The Ararat, Lunatic Asylum in Australia, Athens Mental Hospital in Ohio, and then the Asylum 49 Nursing Home in Tooele, Utah. So I want to do a whole thing I want to do the whole thing about the Tooele stuff. It's fascinating. Okay, let's get into forests. Forests and then mines and caves should go by pretty quick, I think. So forests, the reason that I think they haunted is they're dense.
Because they're haunted.
Haunted. They're dense. It's easy to get lost. A lot of them have not been touched by man, especially like in the interiors of it, which means that it's prime for elementals or other inhuman spirits to hang around. You're also not likely to be found if you get lost or if you're doing something nefarious like satanic rituals. So a lot of these forests are known for occults, all kinds of stuff.
Jeez.
So these are going to be relatively famous that I talk about. The first one is the Devil's Tramping Grounds in Bear Creek, North Carolina. This is a very weird place. It is a perfectly round, absolutely barren circle, about 40 feet in diameter in the middle of this forest. They have tried to plant seeds. Nothing sprouts. They have tried to transplant plants into the circle. Everything dies. Scientists have looked at the soil there. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no reason that these things should not be growing.
So is there grass?
No, it's dirt.
Like it's just dirt.
It's dirt.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Any object that's left in the circle will be thrown out of the circle by dawn. And people have actually, they've tried to camp in the circle. Their tents will be moved out of the circle when they wake up in the morning.
With them in it?
Yes. Some of them will even just like their tent will still be in the circle, but they themselves have been moved out of the circle, which is like, no, thank you.
I would leave that tent.
Yeah, 100%.
If I got moved out of the tent and the tent stayed in the circle, I would be like, you belong to the earth now. Goodbye. Like, no.
The devil's tent.
I'm out.
Animals get spooked around the area. Dogs, like people will go like walking their dogs and hiking through here. Dogs refuse to go in it. They will circle around that area instead of going in through it.
Oh, that's so weird.
So the legendary quote that goes with this is, quote, "In his camping ground, the devil spends his nights pacing around and around in a circle and turning his bitter mind towards ways to bring human souls to damnation. It's the scorching heat of his cloven hoof prints that kills the vegetation and has rendered the soil barren. He angrily brushes aside anything left in his path, his great strength easily able to toss aside even the heaviest objects. When he walks in his private spot on earth, the devil drops the illusions with which he disguises himself when he appears to men. In his natural state, the face of this fallen angel is so horrible that no man can see it and remain sane." So that's the legend that goes with the devil's tramping ground.
Cool. So have there been like reports of people seeing the devil?
Yes. Actually, people will see shadow figures kind of hanging out around the periphery and around the edge of the forest. Lots of paranormal investigators. As a matter of fact, Zach and everybody in Ghost Adventures went to this. This is the episode whenever he got spooked and he went, "Billy!" So he claims that he saw it. But there are ghost hunters that will go out there with the specific intention of seeing the devil. But anytime that they get distracted by little things, it's like, they'll see something in their periphery that will draw their attention away. And it's all very fleeting kind of imagery. So it's a weird place. I would love to go there and be spooked out by it. That would be a lot of fun. I'd also not sleep for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Then there is a lot of these places I would not sleep for 6 weeks. Then there is the Aokigahara Forest in Japan, which is also known as the Suicide Forest or the Sea of Trees. I feel like you can't do a haunted forest thing without mentioning this. So this is a very beautiful forest. It is on the northwestern flank of Mount Fuji on the island of Honshu in Japan. 30 square kilometers or 12 square miles of hardened lava. And it's volcanic soil, so it's incredibly dense. Volcanic soil has a lot of mineral content, which means that you get a lot of lush vegetation there. Due to the density of trees, when you get into the interior of the forest, wind can't penetrate through. So it tends to be very eerily silent and calm in it. Lots of people go there to commit suicide, which is why it's named the Suicide Forest. There has been a lot of effort by the Japanese government and just the Japanese people to try to stop people from going in there to complete suicide. There are signs, there are volunteers that go out, there are patrols that go out looking for bodies or looking for people that are camping, because people do go out there and camp, which I don't know why you wouldn't want to, but apparently it's beautiful. Yeah. But if they find you, they're going to ask you a series of questions and basically say, you probably should think about leaving. In 2003, they found 105 bodies. In, I believe, 2007, they found over 200. So
dang.
They haven't released numbers recently because they don't want to perpetuate people
to glorify
taking their own lives here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they will find strings. Some people will actually leave strings to mark their path just in case they want their bodies to be found. Or if they have second thoughts and they want to turn back, they can find their way back out of the forest. And a lot of people will leave tents behind whenever they complete suicide because they've gone out there to camp to decide if they want to or not. And so if you find an abandoned tent, it's likely that that person committed suicide. So the ghosts of these people are known as the Yuri, and there's a couple of conflicting things that I heard about this. So there's the thought that they will lure people in, like people that are weak, constitutional kind of thing, and they're already having the thoughts of suicide. They'll lure them in to try to convince them to complete, or they just want their story to be told, and they just want to be recognized and put to rest, basically. So I heard two very conflicting things
Yeah.
about what they are. I'm sure both exist, but
Oh, of course. I'm sure that there's whether it's called the Yuri or not, I'm sure each side of that story does exist.
right.
And I have heard that those that go that are contemplating, they will hear voices that try to
Yes.
entice them and everything. And then there's other people that they go and they actually get like a sense of like, you don't belong. Like this isn't right. This isn't your time kind of thing. And that convinces them like, okay, I'm gonna go. But yeah, that poor Forrest, like it.
Yeah.
And I say poor Forrest like it's its own being, but I mean it kind of is, and like for it to be so beautiful and lush and everything, and then have people. I mean, I guess if that's what they want is peace in a beautiful place, then okay. But also, you know, I'm not condoning the suicide or anything like that, but you know, I guess if that's what your wishes are, then I guess so. But, you know,
Right.
always,
Yeah.
I'm going to go on a different segue. Always try to reach out if you are feeling that way. And there's many resources and hotlines, and, you know, we love you guys. And like we said in the past episode, practice self-love, and we fucking love you guys. So
You're a badass motherfucker.
you're a badass motherfucker, and you're going to tell yourself that in the mirror, and you're going to reach out for help if you need it.
Yes, absolutely. So on that very, very depressing note,
Yeah.
we have the Black Forest in Germany. That's where a lot of the Grimm brothers fairy tales are set.
Yeah.
It is very densely forested. There's very little sunlight. It's basically the classic scary forest. There's the Isla de las Manecas. I know I'm saying that wrong, but it's the island of the dolls in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a man that lived on this little island. His name was Don Julian Santana. He found a little girl that had drowned, and she had a doll with her about 50 years ago, a little more than 50 years ago now, actually. And he began hanging dolls in the trees and in his home as a tribute. He has since passed away in the exact same spot that the girl was found. The dolls
Didn't he die of like a heart attack?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he fell forward into the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dolls are known to move and talk on their own, despite not having batteries or the means to do so.
Cool.
Some people say that the dolls are evil. Some people say that they're there to protect. He intended for it to be a protection kind of thing. So I'm hoping that
he put them out there
still
for the little girl. So
Right. The next one is the Hoia Baciu Woods in Romania. This one is similar to the Devil's Tramping Grounds in the sense that it has a clearing in the center of it where nothing grows, nothing, I don't know what this is, but they've looked at it. There's no reason that this stuff shouldn't be growing.
now wait, geographically, are they opposite?
Ooh,
Oh,
I don't know. I'd have to look at that. That's interesting.
that would be interesting. If they're like, even if they're off like slightly, that would be very interesting to look at.
Yeah. Romania versus, where was the first one? North Carolina. Actually, no.
No, they're not.
No. Mm-mm.
If it was like more Oregon,
Yeah. We'll have to look. I'll look at a map.
California or something. What? A map?
Getting my cartography on.
Crazy, insane.
So they say that this is supposed to be a portal. People who go into these woods likely do not come out. And in the event that they do come out, they feel anxious and nervous for days afterwards.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So honorable mentions, we have the Randolph Forest in Randolph, Maine, Morgan Monroe State Forest in Martinsville, Indiana, Santa Fe National Forest in Torero, New Mexico, the Angelinas National Forest in Zavala, Texas, which I looked a little bit further into that one. We should go there one day. The Montauk Swamp in Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Yosemite National Park in California, Pine Barrens, New Jersey, which is famous for the Jersey Devil, and the Meeman Shelby Forest State Park in Millington, Tennessee. So,
Damn.
all right, getting into caves and mines. There's a lot of stuff going on in caves and mines. First of all, mining is an incredibly dangerous job. What just happened to you?
Oh God, Sophie's farting. It's
no.
She just like let out a big sigh, and then it was like woof. So
I just happened to look over and she was making this face. I was like, oh God.
Oh gosh, it's rough stuff, Sophie.
Yes, always. So miners were, of course, subjected to cave-ins, carbon monoxide poisoning, a lack of oxygen in general, fires. There was all kinds of stuff that they were subjected to, depending on what they were mining. Cave systems in general are very intricate, and they're easy to get stuck in. There's, of course,
you're meaning like natural caves, right?
Natural cave systems, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's, of course, the famous Nutty Putty Cave with John Jones. You've not heard of the Nutty Putty Cave?
No.
Oh, God.
Nutty Putty sounds like a made-up thing. It sounds like children were like,
yeah, no, this is actually Putty. A super tragic story with this guy. He has a wife and a newborn. He went caving with his family before Thanksgiving, I think. And he hadn't been caving since he was very, very young. He went down a passage that he thought was called the birth canal, where it gets really, really narrow and then it opens up into a larger chamber. Turns out he was in a different passage, and it was a passage that narrowed to a point and did not open to anything. He actually got stuck. He wedged himself in to the point that he couldn't, like his ribs went over a ledge and he couldn't back out without breaking things.
God.
Yeah.
This is awful.
He was stuck upside down for 27 hours before he passed away. They tried to get him out. His brother found him. They tried to get him out through so many different methods, and each method failed. He eventually went into cardiac arrest, and they ended up just sealing the cave off completely. His body's still in there, and Nutty Putty Cave can no longer be explored. So,
oh my God,
that's a quick rundown.
That hurts everything.
Hurts my body. Like, yeah. Nothing about it. And it's just so tragic because he was just going out for a fun family event. And it just, no, don't go in caves, people.
Oh my God.
I had a friend that was doing spelunking for her PhD research. And every time she told me about going in the caves, I was like, you're freaking crazy. Like, no.
No, now I can't remember the movie name, but they like.
Is it The Descent?
Yes. Fuck.
Okay.
No.
The Descent is about John Jones, the Nutty Putty Cave.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, my thought on why these are likely, if you subscribe to the crystal energy theory, there's a lot of mineral content, a lot of rock content down there that they say can do energy and that kind of thing. But there's also a lot of different spirits that like to hang out down there. There are the Tommyknockers, which are a Cornish entity. They're like gnomes.
It made me think of Tallywhacker. I'm so sorry, guys.
He's still recovering. But yes, so Tommyknockers, I actually found out about Tommyknockers when I was watching some Discovery Channel haunted mine thing. I can't even remember the title. We have two German types of entities. One is called the Bergamonch. It is a monk garbed figure, which I'm already not okay.
Why? And then why are there German entities in American caves?
No, these are German entities in German mines.
Yeah. Okay, fine. You're fine then.
Okay.
I mean, you're not, but you're fine.
Then they have the kobolds, which is also German, small black beings of malicious disposition. The seven whistlers from England, they have basilisks, and then, of course, gnomes from the elementals. It's the earth elemental.
Seven whistlers? Wait, is that a cave?
No, the seven whistlers are a group of entities in England that they're known to warn people of things.
So Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?
That's exactly what I thought of. Yeah. I don't know if that's what that is, but yes.
I mean, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so I've got a few caves to talk about. The first one is the Moaning Cavern in California. And I saw two different reasons for why this is called the Moaning Cavern. The first one was there is a moaning sound due to the fluctuation of cold versus warm air into and out of crevices in the cave. Basically, like when you hear the wind moaning through the trees and stuff.
Fine.
Then the other one, which I find a little bit weirder, is the moaning is due to the erosion of rock forming holes that are similar to bottles. When the water level in the holes is low and a droplet of water lands into it, it produces a hollow thumping sound, which, because of the amplification of the acoustics in the cave, it sounds like a low moan in the surface. But apparently that sound has, like, it doesn't reach the surface anymore as the cave has progressed in erosion. So I'm not 100% sure. Those were the two things I saw.
Odd. Okay.
Yes. But the Miwok Indians said that it was a stone giant named Yayali, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Who lived in the cave and lured people to their death, because of course everything lures people to their death.
Well, yeah.
The really fascinating thing here is that they found 100 prehistoric people's remains at the bottom of this cavern, meaning that they fell down a 410-foot chasm as far back as 13,000 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah, so this is an old-ass cave.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was like, when I saw 13,000 years ago, I was like, oh, that's a younger dress. But that's my dissertation. I know. I see the number and I immediately am like, and I'm in my dissertation realm.
We're not going there.
No, we don't have time.
No.
So nobody wants to hear about my dissertation. So the next one is the Hellhole in West Virginia. Honestly, this is it's a really creepy cave. People will hear sounds and that kind of thing. The average temperature is 47 degrees Fahrenheit. It is home to the Virginia big-eared bat. And this is the one that has very tight channels. It's very easy to get stuck. And there are areas that are smaller than a baseball. Like,
you had me in the first half.
Yeah.
I was like, I would go because, it's nice and cool. Bats are kind of cool.
Yeah, bats are awesome.
But no, I'm not going to get stuck.
Yeah, so the entrance is literally just like a piece of plywood that says Hellhole on it. And then there's like a little hole that you have to climb into in order to get into the cave.
Nope.
And I was watching a video on it, and there are guys that are like, how big do I want to say that they are? Like our friend Sarah, like maybe a little bigger than Sarah, barely fitting into these crevices.
No.
Like, no, I couldn't even get in the hole. Like, I'm not that big, but I'm too big to get in that hole. So,
I mean, I'm gonna go straight up and say I am that big. Like, I'm not gonna get in that hole, like at all. I'm not even gonna try.
Right. So the next one is the Wind Cave in South Dakota. This is one of the longest and most complex cave systems in the world, and it is home to the legendary Walking Sam. He is also called Tall Man, or
that one's a little more cryptic.
Yeah, or my favorite, Stovepipe Hat Bigfoot. My favorite.
That's like someone just pointed and was like, describe everything you see.
Exactly. So,
there's the first one that you have, the like Sam guy. It's just like some dude and he's like, hey, I'm Sam. Hey, I'm Sam.
What's up, guys?
I'm Sam.
Then we're getting a Tall Man, and it's like, okay. And
okay, now we're getting creepier.
Hat Bigfoot.
And then it was a child that was like, whoa.
Right. So this dude is apparently 7 feet tall. He has eyes but no mouth, and he sometimes wears a stovepipe hat. So there are there are two legends with him. Either he raises his arms, like he's kind of like Slender Man in the sense that like he's like super tall and gangly and stuff. If he raises his arms, you can see the bodies of his previous victims hanging below his arms.
If he raises his arms, like he's gonna like sniff his armpits, or like
just out to the side,
like a T pose kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a weird flex, bro.
Yeah. So apparently he targets teens and persuades them that they are worthless and encourages them to kill themselves. And he targets teens specifically because they're more susceptible to that kind of thinking. So the
Sam's
second
a
legend,
bad dude.
legit. The second legend is that he just wanders the forest as some sort of punishment and he's looking for companionship. So we either have this dude that's like super bad or this dude that's super lonely. Like there's no in between here. So I possibly feel kind of bad for Stovepipe Hat Bigfoot.
So
his name is now SHB.
So it's either Sad Sam or Bad Sam.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's sad. Or bad.
Or bad. So one of the caves that I came across, of course, is the Bell Witch Cave, but I figured we'd do an entire episode on Bell Witch, so I'll just skip past that. We're getting into mines now. So the Lambi Dehar, I know I'm saying that wrong, Lambi Dehar, Divya will correct me, mine. This was the first iron ore mine in India. The poisonous gases that came up from the mine caused the miners to get a lung disorder, which caused them to die coughing up blood. Unfortunately, their children also played around the mine, so they also got this disease. It closed in 1995, and there are people that have gone in and never come back out. So a big thing with caves and mines is people going in and jumping into water. You should never jump into water in a cave or a mine because it could release gases that will cause you to be DOS, which is dead on surfacing. Basically, there's no oxygen in the air for you to breathe in, so you just suffocate immediately whenever you surface.
God. So also, you don't know like what's under there, or how deep it is, or any just
stay out of them.
Don't do it. Out of caves and mines.
Yeah. So then we have the Ringwood mine in New Jersey. This is one of the largest producers of iron in the world. They had lots of cave-ins, lots of accidents. Of course, they weren't paid very much at all. They would work a day for $1.
Wow.
Footsteps, voices, ghosts with lanterns in hand, and it was abandoned in the early 1900s. The Oak Mining Pit was one of the worst mining disasters in British history, and this is horrible. 361 men, boys, and rescuers died during 2 days' worth of explosions that started on December 12th of 1866. Fire damp, which is a type of gas that's found in mines, typically it's coal bed methane, was ignited through some thing, and that caused an underground fire that raged for several days. On top of that, a 100-ton amount of coal collapsed into the crater at the mouth of the shaft. So the fire was suffocating everybody, and then on top of that, the mouth of the cave closed in, and you were trapped.
Dang.
A paranormal team, I greatly enjoyed this because it was very like, boop. A paranormal team concluded that the land itself was cursed, and the only information I could find on it was they used a Ouija board and equipment to communicate with the spirits.
Cool.
And they decided it was cursed.
Way to go. You guys, bang up job.
Yeah.
Nice job.
So if you're the paranormal team that concluded that, please reach out to me because I'm interested to see why you think it's cursed.
And what other things did you do? Like,
yeah, exactly. It was literally just like this paranormal team. And then it had a link. So I clicked the link and then it went to that and they were just like, yeah, we communicate with spirits. It was like, cool story, bro. So I don't know.
Hi there. Yeah, we're a paranormal team. Hi there.
So then we have the Tonopah Mining Park used in the 1900s Silver Rush. They think that there's two possibilities here, prospectors who died in an avalanche or a cave-in, or Indian spirits that scare people away. And then we have the Sterling Hill Mine, 2,500 feet deep and 35 miles of tunnel. Unfortunately, they were trying to find zinc and iron, but they didn't find any. They still lost 77 miners, despite not finding anything. So they typically hear footsteps, voices, whispers. They will see an apparition of a miner carrying a lantern, and then there's touching and pushing. And then honorable mentions, we have the Vulture Gold Mine, the Nenthed Mines, the Geber Tin Mines, Atlas Coal Mine, and Black Diamond Mine. So, yeah. So that's the first incredibly long episode of our haunted locations.
Wow.
we will cover, what's my next round of things? Native American lands, abandoned areas, hotels, and battlegrounds and war zones in the next episode. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not in this episode because, like, goddamn, Taylor.
God damn. When Taylor researches, she researches.
Well, and like, because you would get to a point and then you would be like, and then, and I was like, oh, yeah, we're not done yet. Yeah. Okay. Continue on. Yeah.
The next episode will be shorter.
Sure.
So it's just the churches and the catacombs and the cemeteries, like there's just so much. So
yeah,
the rest of them, there's not that much on. But if you know anything about any of the stuff that I talked about and you want to add to it, or if you want to correct me on something, because dear God, please correct me if I didn't say something right, because I'm the first person to admit that I probably got it wrong. Yeah. So all I can do is internet research, and we all know how reliable the internet is. So if you have things that you would like to clarify or you would like to add to, or if you have your own stories or anything like that, if you've been to some of these places, please reach out to us and let us know, because we are fascinated by this type of stuff.
Yeah, hit us up.
Yeah.
But if you have like stories about you going into a cave and like getting stuck and everything, I mean, good on you, because obviously you survived if you're going to tell us about it. But also like, I don't know if I can handle that. Like, that's a lot.
I've become a glutton for punishment on those, and I think those are fascinating.
Put Dear Taylor tunnel story, and then I won't read it. She can tell me about it, but like I will have the most anxiety trying to read it. So like, oof, nope.
100%.
Yeah.
So reach out to us on any social media. We are the Ghost Sisters on everything but Instagram. On Instagram, we are the Ghost Sisters Texas, and on Gmail, we are the Ghost Sisters Texas at gmail.com.
And it's TX, not T.
Yeah,
TEXAS. TX.
Yeah, just TX. Yeah.
I almost forgot how to spell Texas.
I've forgotten how to do anything right now.
Yeah, that was a lot. Wow.
It was.
So I guess we're gonna say bye, y'all, and spook you later.
Speak you later.
Speak you
I'm
later.
gonna say it like that every time.
Yeah, and I'll probably say bitches after every time. Bitches.
I'll add in a bitches. I'm glad we've got it going.
We're figuring this out, y'all.
We are, very slowly. So, all right. See you in the next one.
Next time.